Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. And we have a closed session. So we will adjourn. Is there any comments on a closed session? Seeing none, we'll adjourn to closed session. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, we are all here. Notice to the public. Let's see, where's our... Do we have the script for the public comment?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district, but not on the agenda, may do so during the public comment period identified in this agenda. By law, subjects not on the agenda cannot be acted upon by the board except to briefly respond, clarify, and refer to staff for review and presentation at a future meeting. The board president will recognize you for a public comment on matters on the agenda at the appropriate time. So correspondence?
None?
Okay. Consent agenda
No.
and public comment. Seeing none. And guests and presentations.
None.
Okay. And director's report.
Okay, the final numbers for our lunch at the library program, we more than doubled last year's. We had 950 meals served last year and 1,884
Wow.
this year.
That's great.
The biggest group that came was 95 once, so a lot more than last year.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really good. Summer reading club programs, we did 9 shows with a total of 1,100 people attending, which was an average of 122 per show. And last year we had 971, so we're up quite a bit from that. The last 3 shows were Jeremiah Johnson, who is an excellent juggler, drew 100 people. Circus of Smiles, which was kind of a humorous juggling act, did 70, and the final show with the marionettes, we had 190 people show up for that one. As far as signups for Summer Reading Club, we were down slightly from last year. We only had 561 people sign up for it. And I think everybody should have a copy of Jim's Summer Reading Program report, which will give you more details on that.
Okay, great.
There's a couple projects I've been working with the Historical Society. I've let them use the Miller Building for storing some books there. They had a 2-day book sale and made $1,500, which they're going to put towards the museum that they're trying to open.
Great.
The library's going to have a book sale October 19th through the 21st through the Friends, but lots of library discards will be part of that. And the Historical Society's going to sell some of the leftovers from their July sale then too. I've had a couple meetings with the Historical Society where we're trying to fill in some of the gaps in the older Dixon Tribunes. They recently got a donation from YOLO Archives of some bound issues of the Dixon Tribune. And they're going through the microfilms and comparing that with the bound issues. And they found some already that we don't have on the microfilm.
Okay.
So when they get through with that project, I'm going to take them down to the Sacramento place where they do the microfilming and have them added to our database.
That's great.
I've also bought 2 microfilm reels. UC Riverside is in charge of this newspaper archive project, And I talked with the archivist there. From looking at their records, he thinks that there's some older issues that they have on microfilm that we don't. So he also said that they were much higher quality than the microfilm reels that we have. So I decided to purchase those, figuring the worst-case scenario, I have 2 better copies of all the oldest newspapers. So it's, I think, 1874 to 1890. So it'll be the very beginnings of the Tribune. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more stuff in the database. Last Friday, we had Sergeant Harms from Dixon PD come and give us a talk about security and when to call police, what to do in an active shooter situation if that was ever to happen in Dixon. And just general talk about safety in public buildings. You guys discussed this a little bit earlier before the meeting, but Jim went to back-to-school night at Gretchen Higgins. He had 30 people sign up for library cards, and another 15 people took applications home with them. So they were working on getting the library cards ready tonight. I think they'll be ready tomorrow to be dropped off at the school.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for having him there. I think he was surprised, I think, a little bit about how many people really wanted library cards right then, and they're gonna do it again at Tremont. So on the 24th, I think, I can't remember what their day is, but something like that. So that's great. Thank you.
What about Anderson? Do you
So
know?
Anderson, I talked to Danielle today, because Anderson and Tremont are having their back to school on the same night. She has asked me to work with her to find another night where they have some sort of, event where they have families there, and we'll bring the librarian then. So a little different setup, but same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's all I have for the director's report.
great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question about the summer reading program, the drop in the early literacy group? That it says on here that it's because the schools wanted the kids to sign up at the library rather than at the schools. Do you know why that came about, and is there anything we can do about that for next year so that we can try to get those numbers back up for the early literacy group?
I don't really have an explanation. I could ask Jim what he
Okay.
thinks about it.
Yeah, I think if we can make it easier for the families, for the younger kids to sign up, all the better,
Okay.
Can I ask another question? You gave us this final results. Is this correct? What we're
Oh, on the
seeing?
budget?
Yes.
Yes.
So am I correct if I read this correctly, that we actually had revenues at one point, almost 1.26? 1,259,000, is that correct? On a budget of 993?
Well, actually, the revenues overall were down according to the more detailed section.
Well, I'm just looking at this summary page. It says, right in the middle of the page, it says your total revenues, actuals, hyphen fiscal, 1,259,344. Right in the middle of the page.
Yeah,
1,259,344.
Yep. And on expenditures of 1,140,202, which is essentially at a surplus of 119. Even though we
yeah, I think
budgeted
down there, the 109 is the difference there.
109.
Oh, no, wait, you're right,
119.
119 here.
So, I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
So we had higher revenue. We only budgeted on revenues 993 on a budgeted 1,249 expenditures, and you only spent 1,140?
I think so, yeah.
You think so? So can we, we need to know that a little more clearly, I would say.
And this is probably part of a conversation on the next item, which I was.
Oh, okay.
No, well, I'm just saying, it could be part of a conversation on the next
Oh.
item, which is the future governance of the library, which was
That's
the
fine.
subcommittee on budget that I was
Okay,
talking about.
all right.
So
I'll
maybe,
just let, we can wait, we'll just go through it, that's fine.
well, I'm just saying that this is the idea that, somebody actually comes and presents more of a thorough conversation to us about our budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, we're gonna talk about this for a few minutes.
Okay.
And there isn't a lot of other detailed conversation that goes into the budget, and that's one of the reasons that if we're moving on to ongoing business.
So are there any more board comments about the director's activities? The directors, okay. So ongoing business, so we'll go ahead and go into that. So I think what Caitlin's saying, so is there, the person who prepares the budget, can they
Yeah.
come in and give us a presentation on the budget so we can more fully understand it?
Yeah, sure, yeah, we can do that.
And I think it would be good, I don't know about you guys, but for us to even have it attached to an email so we can even look it over before we get here.
Okay.
That would be, I don't know if that would be helpful to you guys, but I would look at it if I had it beforehand.
Well, and I think about what I'm talking about is even a little further in depth than that. So, having a committee
These
that,
details.
right, that has a little more, because we do get presentation on our budget, for instance, on the school board, but there's a whole, there's a whole cabinet, there's a lot of review, there are department heads that put information in, and I feel like there are a lot more eyes and conversation that goes in prior to us getting the budget. So even though as a school board, our review of the budget, is a presentation and is a conversation, there's a whole lot more that goes in before we get it. And again, I understand that it's a much bigger budget, but I still feel like there should be more that goes in prior to us seeing the budget. And that has been my conversation around the governance, and we've talked about this in a variety of ways, about the redrawing the lines in terms of the tax issue, which we did already. And then I think, we've gotten around to the conversation around, do we, are we fine as just a group of 5? Do we think that that's enough oversight for a library to have, for a public library to have, considering that we meet once a month for about 15 minutes? Or do we feel like there should be another group that helps us to look at things like budget and maybe even planning for future growth or construction or those sorts of things? And I think this is part of that conversation. So we've been waiting until we had all 5 of us here together to really actually have a conversation around that. And we've had it on the agenda for several times now, so maybe this is a good time to do that.
So let's do it.
Does anybody have any thoughts other than me?
Well, I mean, it never never gonna hurt to put more eyes on it and somebody who's doing more in-depth review of the financial, so that somebody else is, I mean, we've, over time with the school district, we become very involved in it, just because of the amount of information that we see constantly. So, I mean, I don't have a problem that if there's people who want to be more involved with the board, even though we retain all authority, that wants to do that work and help present after they have worked with our employees of the library to do that. I don't have a problem with that. And we've talked about this governance thing round and round. We've had, there's really, multiple ways to do it. Either we acquiesce and go to Solano County, right?
Right?
We redraw the lines.
Well, I think we already, in terms of taxation, I think we've already figured that out, and that was one of the pieces, is getting us back in line in terms of taxation.
All right, but there's a big fund, there's a pretty good amount of money out there too, right? That we would give up, right? Of that, on that line? Because the difference in the districts are different.
But we already straightened that out we've
It's
already
all
straightened that out.
done?
Yeah.
With
That's-
Vacaville?
With Vacaville, yeah, we already did that.
Oh, okay.
So I forget
Through an MOU with them, and that's all, so.
what Scott said about, are we able to have a committee? I know that there were some legal issues that some
You
things
can't
we
have a
couldn't do.
commission.
Can't have a commission.
No, we could.
We could,
We
but-
could,
But
but
it would cost a lot of money to get to that
no,
point.
it's not just the cost of money. It's the fact that
There's a stigma
Yeah, there's a stigma with it.
Yeah.
attached to the
What
whole.
would cost money is if we decided that we wanted to be independently elected and
That's right.
separate from the school board, that's what would cost money. And sort of to the history, we redrew the line so that we could do that if we wanted to, because at one point in time, the lines were, separate, they were different. And so now it's all cleaned up, that part's all cleaned up. And if we wanted to have 2 separate boards, we could, but it would cost us $30,000 every election. And that's a lot of money
That is a lot of money.
for us that we could spend on something else. So if we retain authority as the library board, the question is, could we call in, on a group of people to be advisors, to be, assistants, to be a committee? I mean, we as the school board asked for people to help us on a logo, right? I mean, it seems like we ought to have them help us on,
Or a budget oversight committee.
right, a budget oversight committee or something. And, and it would also be a group, I think, again, as we look forward to, doing some construction. and
Other
those sorts of things.
committees.
that we have a group that we, can rely on to give us opinions on things, to give us some.
Represent the
Right.
public,
Well,
yeah.
and to have a group like that's important, I think, because at any given year, half our board could be turned over. And then we're pretty much starting from scratch.
Well,
with
next
half
year,
of-
4 of our board members
Yeah.
can turn over, right?
So a whole new board, and now they have to learn that all over again, where if you have a committee that's kind of always there, they're there to pick up the pieces when you don't know something or can fill you in pretty quickly.
Well, and generally speaking, if we get an advisory committee for the library, for a general committee, they're going to be people that are engaged with the library or they wouldn't sign up. And so I think it's good to have those opinions coming in about what are the issues going on that the public wants to have changed or considered. And even though we may keep all authority, I think that's a great thing to have people that are engaged reporting.
Yeah, see, what the commission was kind of a bad thought was when the school board essentially gave up, or the library board gave up the control to the commission, from what I understood. And then, and then the commission kind of was their own independent operating group. And so, we wouldn't want to give up any power to them, but more as like an advisory committee, they would report to us.
Correct.
So because we're the elected
That's
officials.
the difference.
Yeah.
But again, if you think about the way that we, at our school board meeting last week, said that we would like some input on our logo, right? So, it's something that's, we want the public's input on, but we don't want to go out to 18,000 people and ask individual opinions. So we've put together a group that we say, can you help us? Can you advise us? Can you
representative
meet?
of
Can
the
you give us
public.
your opinions? Can you look these things over and come back to us with some opinions about that?
We
And-
could, yeah, okay.
And that doesn't, and we talked about that last time, that, that's a different setup
Yeah,
from a
that's not the
commission, or from
commission,
an official subcommittee or any of those sorts of things. It's an advisory
But
group,
we
and that was
would,
what.
we would probably want the advisory committee to do many of these things that might do it in a deeper way than we do.
Right, exactly, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, my suggestion would be that we, if we all agree on it, that we put out something from the library that says we're looking for, X number of people to serve in this capacity, that maybe we even do outreach to people we know who might be interested, who've been interested in the past in library activities, and, tell them that we're soliciting opinions and people to work on this.
It's nothing more than an advisory committee.
Right,
And I would like to include maybe somebody from the library that was actually an employee.
Sure.
That way we have their input too.
yep.
That would make a good idea.
Because that's one thing that didn't happen on the old commission.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a great idea, yeah.
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 Well, it probably should have one of us, at least one of us.
Well,
Or it could
I
be,
don't know that it would,
Or they can
right?
report to us
That's
at
what
every
I'm
Because
saying.
they have to
meeting, so-
report to us.
Yeah.
And then we could get.
I don't care. I mean,
Well, one thing I
it's
will
just an
say about
idea.
this is we'd get more public engagement.
Right.
For sure.
Because we're talking to an empty room right
Yeah.
now. Right. So it
Yes.
would be nice to have any.
And
public
probably an
engagement.
empty
Yeah.
city, like,
Right,
I
right,
wonder how
right.
many
Yeah.
people are actually watching.
Right.
Okay, so we're kind of getting into the new business too, for formation of subcommittee to report to board on library
Well,
information.
it's really talking about the governance, and the governance, it sounds like we're not gonna change. Would that be fair, since we're talking about?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
not the
essentially, what we're
governance.
asking is that the way we're kind of morphing in our governance is that we're not changing our governance. We're gonna set up some committees that will help us with some of
Sure.
these in-depth ideas, if you wanna call it that.
So-
Like, no different than an audit committee,
Sure.
or,
Right.
I don't know, curricular committee, I mean, I don't know.
So this says action. Do we need to take action that
No.
we're not
No,
changing
'cause
that?
we're not
No,
changing
we're not
Okay.
changing anything.
Okay, so what would we call, moving on to A in new business, the formation of the subcommittee? So what exactly would we call this, so we can do some outreach?
Advisory committee.
Advisory committee, okay.
And I think it's not here right now, but I think Scott gave us some direction on specifically what,
Gonna say.
right, what that had to look like.
I was
in
gonna
one of
say.
the, but in the one, we've
Must
seen
be
it
some
already.
legal,
and I
there
just-
must be some legal
And he did, we've seen
Brown
it
Act, right?
here.
Or not? I would imagine no.
I think no.
Because they don't have any
But he gave
power.
us some
Because they don't
very
have any
specific written
authority.
direction.
Don't have any
Right, Steve,
authority.
he gave us some specific written direction, and maybe you can email that all to us, just so we all refresh our memories what that
Okay,
looks like.
yeah.
But he gave us, we asked very specific questions, he gave us very specific written, actually, I don't know if it was Scott, but somebody from his
Okay,
office on what that would look like. But, maybe we pick 5 people to do that. I think anything bigger than that maybe gets a little big. I like your idea of one person from the library staff being on that. So one of your employees being on that. And then we can maybe give them things that specifically that we would like them to look at, but they could also come to us with things that they want to look at.
Sure.
And so is this something that, as we appoint them, that they're gonna come to us and we're gonna approve who's on the committee?
Yeah, so we would actually say who's on
Okay.
the committee, right? So it's the
Yeah.
same, again, sort of, I'm sort of using the idea with the, the logo, idea. So we say, okay, we want a, teacher and a, whoever on this committee, right? And then we say who those people are, on our advisory committee. And, so it's, it's people that we would, we would ask to be on the committee, to serve on the committee.
Okay,
I guess we're gonna need to advertise for that too.
Right, and so, so Steve, if maybe you can get the word out in the library community and maybe even in the Tribune or something, and on your webpage, that we're looking for people to serve in that capacity.
Yeah, some other groups, maybe like the Taxpayers Association.
And the Historical Society and, things like that.
so can you, reach out to Scott and just tell him that we decided that after we vote, if that's the direction we go, should we vote on this before I make that comment? So, is there a motion for formation of, advisory committee?
So moved.
Is
I'll
there
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
An aye as well, and the motion passes. So can you tell Scott, please, that we would like to do this advisory committee, and just to make sure that we're, in accordance with everything, and then go ahead and submit for people to find out who's interested, publicize, and put it
Okay.
on our Facebook page. I found that Facebook is
Yeah,
a great way. I know the library has a Facebook page, right, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be a good place. Maybe even Dixon 411 or Live in Dixon are two other sites that lots of people, that reaches access to people,
And you also want to do the Tribune too.
and the Tribune.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay?
perfect.
Okay, so moving on to discussion of the future library properties.
Okay, well, I'm not sure exactly where we want to go with this, because, last time we were talking
Yeah, I was
about
gonna say it's on here.
the mayor speaking to both Melissa and I, expressing interest in buying the former Pereira property. And so that's kind of where this discussion started last time. As far as things I would like to see with an expansion or possible expansion, the way I look at it, there's three possibilities. We can renovate the Miller Building. We can connect the Miller Building with the existing library in a bigger way. Probably the first option would be to just kind of have a walkway between the two. The second one would be to really connect the two buildings and make it a much larger library that way. Or the third possibility would be to expand onto the former Lefevre property from the children's room. Since we owned that area and we owned the easement there too, so that's an option. I think that cost is gonna be the biggest deciding factor as to what's possible, whether all those options or one of those would be the first place to start. I would like to see a program room for special events, because we get such a big turnout for the kids' summer events. And two of them this year, we had to have indoors, which was really crowded and probably didn't meet capacity
right.
regulations, because we had 120 people for the animal show. But it was just too hot to have it outdoors. It wasn't really safe for the people or the animals, so we had to have it inside. And then the other one that we had to have inside was one of the juggling things, because it was just too windy. So
Okay.
stuff like that is always going to happen in summer. It's just unpredictable as to how hot it's going to be. So
Which the Miller Building wouldn't really be big enough for something like that, though, would it?
not really. I mean, if we did it, that would probably be the only thing that went over there. I don't think we'd have enough room to have a place that could seat 150 people comfortably and really do anything else with the Miller Building.
Well, and I think too, we need to look at, at least some limited future growth. I mean, I don't think we're not gonna grow, exponentially, but I think we do have to plan for some future growth. So it's not as though we should build a capacity now and expect that we're never gonna have more than that. if we're gonna put this kind of money into it. I don't know that we need to, build, like some other projects have been built much bigger, but I do think we need to at least have an idea of room for expansion. So just as we're thinking that through. But this is also, and I said this last time too, and this is also something that I want a subcommittee to be part of, a conversation around, so that we again have some more voices around this conversation, as we're moving forward.
One thing as we're thinking of that though, it would be good since, the library serves so many children in our community to at least have one parent on that.
Maybe multiple parents. Community.
For
So Steve,
their-
were you talking about maybe a multi-purpose room or something like that building?
I mean, that's one possibility. I mean, another possibility is expanding the bookstore in that building and really just kind of expanding the library into that area for book stacks. Because right now, really, the shelves are so full that
Right.
to add a book, we have to throw a book away for the most part, or put it into storage. So, I mean, especially in the children's department. I mean, anytime we get any new books, we have to get rid of older books. So it would be nice to have some expansion of the collection.
Well, and I think too, when you talk about the meal program over the summer, right, I mean, those sorts of things would go well in a multi-purpose sort of area too, rather than maybe, in the library and, that sort of stuff.
Well, I think this is the first job, really, I mean, of this committee, right? What we're talking about?
Right, that's what I
Would be a good idea, right? Because the answer is we're gonna have all kinds of public comment in reference to that.
Yeah, and if you had the money and built something a little bit bigger than what we need, it could always be a venue,
Well, and
that
you
people
could,
could rent out, because Dixon's kind of short on those.
Yeah, that's true. When I looked into, well, earlier this year when we had that Kennedy book reading event, I looked into going across the street to the Veterans Building and they were gonna charge $1,000 for the
Yeah.
event. So. that's
Pricey.
Pretty pricey for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with this though, I know that we've had some architects take a look at things and they're still working on things, is that correct?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can we have
the-
a little
The way that we left it with him last time was that he wanted me to try and find the plans for the renovation that was done in 1990, as far as him looking at it as possibly whether we can connect the two buildings and make it a much bigger building. But I wasn't able to find detailed plans. I found like basic sketches. I found a really detailed electrical layout for the building, but nothing much beyond that. I talked to the assessor's office and went down there, they didn't have anything. Right now, the city clerk is supposedly looking to try and see if they have any plans at City Hall, but I contacted her, I think 3 times, and I haven't gotten a definite answer from them yet.
I know for me, I mean, just on a logical perspective, that if this committee is gonna do what we want, which is to gain a greater vision of what the community really wants in reference to this, to our properties and the library itself. I mean, the first thing, before we would even talk about disposing of property or the city interested in it, would be for that committee to kind of wrestle with this a little bit. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. I mean, yeah, we want to talk about the budget, yeah, absolutely, but as far as I'm concerned, that would be one of the things that we kind of want to, let's talk about what we're thinking about doing, or what others are thinking about doing, before we discuss what we're gonna let go.
Yeah, we gotta have a plan that's, a year from now, 10
And
years
then-
from now,
then
20
it's-
years from now.
Then it's somewhat vetted from the community, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that makes
people who
sense.
are, really, really interested in the future of the library, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any of us is anywhere, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, I don't think any of us is anywhere close to letting any property go. I mean,
No.
so it's really, what do we do with what we have, and, what's the build out on that, and do we do something now and then plan for something 10 years from now? I mean, do we do a building now that allows us to add on 10 years from now if we need to, or, those sorts of things?
I mean, I'd be interested, just from a curious perspective, why is the city interested?
It's not the city.
It wasn't the city,
The
it was the
mayor
mayor.
individually.
The mayor as a private individual,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Tom?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He wanted to build a house.
When you
there.
said the mayor, I was assuming the city.
Nope,
Yeah, no.
here's something about building
Okay,
house.
well, no, then the answer is,
That's what we said, yeah.
then I definitely want that committee to look at what, in reference to some of the things that you discussed.
So on this, as far as, what to do, what about sending out a survey to the public? Just a short survey as to see, what kind of services would you like to see at the library? What are we lacking that you would like to see? And reach out, we always want to do, reach out to the public,
That's a good idea.
just to see what they think, because maybe
We're
they're
getting good at
thinking
Survey
totally,
Monkey.
Yeah.
maybe
We're
they're
getting good at
thinking
that.
totally different,
Yeah.
things than what we're thinking.
How would we send that out? Just through Dixon 411 or something, or?
We probably could put a link in the newspaper to say, take
Survey
this,
Monkey.
Yeah.
take this.
Perfect.
But actually, if you do it on Google Forms.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, if you do it on Google Forms, you could do it on your phone.
You can
And-
use
and
Survey
it's a
Monkey
matter of
works.
equity,
It
in
works.
terms of whether you can do it on your phone or not.
Survey
Can you
Monkey
do it on your phone?
unhooked.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we need to make sure that we can do it, that people who
On
don't
all
have.
mobile devices.
Right, people who don't have anything other than a mobile device can also answer it, because I think, and also they do it in Spanish.
So
And-
Survey Monkey you
Right.
can,
Okay,
but if the Google Docs form is, the thing about, so like the school district already has an account, we'd have to pay for an account.
Google Forms is free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll do that.
Yeah. And, and we can also put those things, we can link the survey on the Facebook page and then push that out through the, Dixon 411 and those sorts of things too, which is also free. So, it's always good to find free ways to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And, and get things back. And again, I would keep the survey really short, ask, 5 questions. And then if that works, we could ask 5 more later, but just making sure that we're doing things that people are willing to answer, and, can do it really quickly.
So Steve, do you want to maybe, come up with some questions? And you can send them to us, just to see if we have any comments, and then we can
We
put it
can-
up on the, through Google Docs.
Okay.
Sounds good.
In addition to that, would you want to publicize a future meeting of the library board saying this is a good time for the public to come and make comments about?
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
But I mean, I would hope that we always publicize in a way that, but it just seems like it doesn't really get people there. I'm thinking this is another way to, have people, you don't wanna come sit at a library board meeting, give
Great.
us your.
Show us your
information
input,
for-
yeah.
Well, and if we do set up an advisory committee, that'll help get the word out for
Yeah,
people too.
sure.
And maybe that's someplace that we need to go as far as outreach, as far as the newspaper and Facebook. Maybe we need to start, I don't know, I don't think we do that, where we advertise. I mean, I know it's on the door when you walk into the library, but other than that,
Maybe we could put a link on our website that says if you're interested in being on this committee, they can click a thing and send us their name and contact information.
Yeah, well, every library board meeting, the agenda goes out to
Yeah.
the Reporter and the Tribune.
okay, I haven't read that in the Tribune, that's good,
Well,
okay.
they just don't
They
choose
just-
to
they
publish
just-
it.
Right.
Oh, okay,
They're busy publishing recipes, so, I mean,
okay.
they don't actually publish news,
okay,
right?
okay, well, that's good to know. Okay, so it does go down.
I did use them extensively to promote the lunch at the library and the summer reading club.
Good.
Okay,
programs
great.
This year, and also on the Facebook page, I did lots of advertising there too.
Well, so maybe we just need to have a topic that they'll want to post that they think, so probably an advisory committee, they might be interested in that. And then also, I'm sure that there would be someone who would be willing to write an article about, or I don't know if they have you write the article and submit it, but about, that, we want to reach out to the public asking what they would like as far as services from the library.
Oh, they would probably do that, because they published articles about the summer reading program and the lunch at the library
Okay,
we wrote.
okay, that's great. Are there any other comments? Okay. So moving on to approval of the minutes of July 13. Is there a motion to approve? Or are there any comments about the minutes? Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well, and the motion passes. So do we have any announcements for any future
No, I don't think so.
And again,
comments?
the one other thing, so you're gonna have somebody, for the next meeting, we'll have, go through this a little bit more detail. the
Okay, yeah,
budget.
sure, I can ask her if she can
That'd
come.
be great, because the way I read this, we have about 1.4 in cash, so just wanna make sure that's true.
Okay.
I'm reading this wrong.
It's a hefty
Huh?
surplus, it's a hefty
That's
surplus.
nice to have, that's a nice to have.
Okay, so are there any more comments?
Nope.
Okay, this meeting's adjourned.